I was sitting in the doctor's waiting room when my phone rang. The number on the screen made me smile at first. It was my daughter, Angela, my only child, the one I had raised alone after her father died 6 months ago. But when I answered, her voice didn't sound like my daughter's anymore. It was cold, detached. "Mom," she said, almost impatiently, "we're going to Europe tomorrow. Edward got an amazing opportunity, and, well, I sold your beach house." I froze. "You... what?" "I sold the beach house," she repeated, as if telling me she'd sold an old piece of furniture. "We needed the money for the trip. Don't worry, I'll send you something from the sale. Anyway, bye, Mom. Take care." And she hung up. Just like that. I sat there in that pale green waiting room, surrounded by coughs, murmurs, and the hum of fluorescent lights. I didn't cry. I didn't even move. 45 years I had raised her. I'd worked double shifts, skipped vacations, and buried my dreams to give her a life full of comfort. And now, in a single phone call, she had discarded me like garbage. But something strange happened inside me. A calm I hadn't felt in months began to rise. My husband, Robert, had been gone only half a year. He died one quiet morning while buttering toast, right after kissing my forehead and whispering, "Good morning, my love." Those were his last words. Since then, Angela had been around, or so I thought. She helped with the funeral, came by often, told me she'd take care of everything. She even said, "Mom, you need to see a doctor. You're alone now. You have to take better care of yourself." I thought it was love. But maybe it was preparation. That beach house she sold wasn't just property. It was her sanctuary, the place where Robert taught Angela to swim, where we spent Christmases by the sea, where every wall held laughter. And the car? That old Ford pickup Robert used to wash every Sunday? She'd sold that too. But as I sat there, I suddenly remembered something I hadn't thought about since before he died. 3 days before Robert's death, he handed me a sealed manila envelope. He'd smiled and said, "Antonia, put this somewhere safe. Open it when you're ready, not before." At the time, I thought it was something sentimental, maybe a love letter. I tucked it into my dresser drawer and forgot. Now, Angela's betrayal had shaken something awake in me. I went through the rest of the doctor's appointment in silence. The doctor said I was in good health for my age, told me to rest more, eat better. I nodded politely, but all I could think about was that envelope. When I got home, the house felt emptier than ever. Robert's chair still sat by the window, his sweater still hung on the hook. I could still smell his aftershave. I walked straight to the bedroom, opened the dresser drawer, and there it was, the envelope. A little dusty, but untouched. Robert's handwriting stared back at me. "For Antonia, when you're ready." My hands trembled as I held it. The paper inside shifted softly, and for a moment, I felt him there with me. Patient, kind, waiting for me to open it. But before I could, my phone buzzed again. Angela. This time, her tone was fake sweet. "Mom, I transferred your part of the money from the beach house. You'll be comfortable for a few months until you find a smaller place. We're leaving tonight. Don't worry. We'll call once we're settled." "My part?" I asked, my voice steady. "Yes, Mom. We gave you 30%. That's fair, right? Edward says you should be grateful. We need the rest for our investment." "Of course," I said softly. "Safe travels, sweetheart." She laughed, relieved. "I knew you'd understand. You're always so compassionate. Love you, Mom." And she was gone again. I set the phone down and stared at it for a long moment. Then I laughed. It wasn't a bitter laugh, not yet. It was the laugh of a woman who had finally stopped pretending to be weak. Because if Robert had taught me one thing, it was this. Never underestimate quiet people. They're the ones who make the biggest moves in silence. I turned back to the envelope and slowly, with shaking hands, I opened it. Inside were several documents, thick papers, property deeds, and a letter written in Robert's familiar handwriting. The first line made my heart skip. My dearest Antonia, if you're reading this, it means I am gone. But don't be afraid. I have taken care of everything. I pressed the paper to my chest. He continued, over the years, I invested our savings quietly. You and Angela always thought the beach house was our only property, but we owned much more. 6 houses, an apartment building, even shares in companies I never told you about. You are the sole heir, my love. Everything is in your name. I gasped. 6 houses, a building, companies. Robert, my simple, humble bus driver husband, had been a silent millionaire. And then came the part that made my blood run cold. Be careful with Angela. I love her, but she's impulsive. Never let her know what we truly have until you're sure she deserves to. Tears blurred my vision. He knew it. Somewhere deep down he had known. That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the window watching the moonlight spill across Robert's chair, and I realized something. Angela hadn't betrayed me for money. She'd betrayed me because she thought I had none. She thought I was powerless. And that was going to be her biggest mistake. Morning came quietly, the kind of pale dawn that turns everything silver. I hadn't slept a single minute. Robert's letter still lay on our lap, his handwriting slightly smudged from my tears. For the first time since his death, I didn't feel lost. I felt guided. I made myself coffee, sat by the window, and read the letter again, this time more carefully. At the bottom, Robert had written, quote, when the time comes, contact Michael Carter at Carter and Bloom Law Offices. He knows everything. End quote. I stared at that line for a long time. Michael Carter. That name felt faintly familiar. I remembered him as one of Robert's old friends who'd attended the funeral. Tall, kind eyes, quiet smile. He'd slipped me his card and said, call me any time, Mrs. Hale. Back then, I thought he was just being polite. Now, I knew better. I found the card in my drawer and dialed the number. Carter and Bloom, good morning, a woman's voice said. I'd like to speak to Michael Carter, I replied softly. Who's calling? Antonia Hale. There was a pause, then a slight intake of breath. Of course, Miss Hale. One moment, please. Seconds later, a warm, steady voice came through the line. Antonia, he said. I was wondering when you'd call. You knew I would? I hoped you would, he said gently. Robert told me you'd reach out when you were ready. Something in his tone made me trust him immediately. Mr. Carter, I whispered, I think it's time I know what my husband really left behind. He didn't sound surprised. Then come in today, he said. I'll have everything prepared. By noon, I was sitting in a sleek office on Main Street, surrounded by leather chairs and the faint scent of old books. Michael Carter looked exactly as I remembered him, calm, professional, and compassionate. He placed a thick blue folder on the table. This, he said, is everything Robert left under your name. Inside were property deeds, bank statements, and certificates of ownership, a small apartment building in Portland, 2 rental homes in Florida, 3 beach properties, one of which Angela had just sold illegally, since she wasn't even listed on the title at all. I blinked. Wait, she wasn't even authorized to sell it? Michael nodded grimly. Correct. Only you were. The documents she signed are fraudulent, which means we can reverse the sale. For the first time, a slow, deep satisfaction spread through me. Can we really? He smiled faintly. Absolutely. But we can do more than that, if you're ready. He leaned back, watching me carefully. Robert left instructions. He wanted you to decide what kind of justice you wanted. You could quietly reclaim everything, or let her believe she's won, and then show her what she's really done. I met his eyes, and he seemed to understand the answer without words. I need to know everything she's done since the sale, he said. Where she's gone, what she's spending. She's in Europe. Maybe Italy or France. She and her husband left last night. Michael nodded and made a note. I'll handle the legal reversal discreetly. No calls, no alerts. You'll remain the silent owner of everything. In the meantime, Mrs. Hale, live your life as usual. Let her think she's in control. I smiled slowly. That won't be hard. She hasn't called me Mom with love in years. That evening, I went home, poured myself a glass of Robert's favorite wine, and watched the sun sink behind the trees. The ocean breeze whispered through the open window, carrying memories of better days. But under that golden calm, I began to plan. Angela had always been impatient, reckless, and obsessed with appearances. She'd bragged about wealth that wasn't hers, flaunted luxury she couldn't afford. Now she was finally in a position to destroy herself. She just didn't know it yet. A week later, I received an email from her. The subject line read, "Just checking on you." It was full of pictures. Paris, Venice, Rome, Angela in designer clothes, her husband, Edward, holding wine glasses, laughing on yachts. Can you believe this view, Mom? You should travel more. Oh, and please forward any mail that looks important. Love you. Love you. 2 empty words floating in a digital void. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded her email to Michael. He laughed when he saw the photos. She's making it easy, he said. Every purchase she makes with that money is traceable. She's using your funds, illegally. This gives us leverage. Leverage? I asked. He nodded. We'll let her build her little empire of lies, and then, when the time is right, it will all collapse. I looked at him for a moment. You sound like Robert, I said quietly. He was a good man. He trusted you to finish what he couldn't. Months passed. Angela called less and less. At first, she'd send voice notes filled with laughter, expensive dinners, shopping sprees. Edward just got a promotion. But soon the tone shifted. Mom, the bills are piling up. Mom, the bank froze our card. Can you send something? Mom, you still have money from the house, right? I would answer gently every time. Oh, sweetheart, I'll see what I can do. Things are tight here, too. She'd sigh dramatically and hang up. Meanwhile, Michael and I continued the quiet work. The beach house sale was reversed through the court, the funds returned to my account, and Angela's fraudulent activity was carefully documented without her knowing a single thing. By the 5th month, I had moved quietly into one of the other properties, a beautiful seaside villa that Robert had bought under an LLC. Angela had no idea it existed. The walls were pale blue, the ocean was right outside the glass doors, and every evening I'd sit by the fire and imagine Robert beside me saying, "You always were stronger than you thought." I didn't sleep much after that call. Angela's voice, trembling, panicked, echoed in my ears long after the line went dead. For years, I had imagined what it would feel like to hear her apologize. But that night, I realized I didn't need her apology anymore. I needed her understanding. That's a different kind of justice, Slower, deeper, unforgettable. The next morning, I met with Michael Carter again. He was reviewing a file thick with papers. "She's losing control," I said, sitting across from him. He looked up and smiled faintly. "Perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. The financial authorities in Italy have flagged her transactions. Once she comes home, we'll be ready." I hesitated. "Do you ever feel guilty doing this?" He leaned back, studying me carefully. "Do you?" I thought about that for a moment. "No," I said quietly. "Not anymore." Michael nodded approvingly. "Then neither do I." He handed me a document. It was a transfer deed for the beach house, back in my name officially. "Everything is secure now, Mrs. Hale. She can't touch a penny. The properties, the accounts, even the trust Robert built, all locked." "Trust?" I repeated. Michael smiled. "Robert set up a trust fund, one you can assign however you wish. He left specific notes about it. He wrote, 'Use it to teach her what real wealth means.'" That line made me smile. My husband always had a poet's soul, even when he was planning revenge from beyond the grave. 2 weeks later, I got a message from Angela. No emojis, no exclamation points, just 3 words. "I'm coming home." I stared at the screen for a long while before replying, "Of course, darling. I'll be here." When she arrived, she looked nothing like the woman from those glossy vacation photos. Her hair was tangled, her eyes hollow, her designer suitcase scuffed and torn. Edward wasn't with her. Apparently he'd needed space. She stood at my doorstep, trembling in the cold. "Mom, everything's gone. They froze our accounts. Edward's blaming me. They say I committed fraud. I don't understand how this happened." I stepped aside. "Come in," I said simply. She walked in slowly, eyes darting around the house, the same home she'd tried to erase from my life. The warmth from the fireplace filled the air, and for a brief moment, she seemed like a child again. I brought her tea. She held it tightly, staring into the cup. "Mom, I didn't mean for things to go this way," she whispered. "Edward said it was all legal. I just wanted us to have a better life." I sat across from her, watching the steam rise between us like a ghost. "Angela," I said softly, "you already had a good life." Her lips trembled. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted gently. "You sold my house, my memories, my peace, for a trip, for appearances, because somewhere along the way, you decided that love wasn't enough unless it was covered in gold." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Mom, please." "Do you remember what your father used to say?" I asked quietly. "He said money only reveals who we really are." She nodded, shaking. "I know, Mom, I messed up, but if—" "Shh." I leaned forward. "I'm not angry, sweetheart. I'm grateful." Her eyes widened. "Grateful?" "Yes," I said calmly, "because your father left something for us. For me, really. But I've decided to share it. Under certain conditions." She looked up, hope flickering. "Really? You mean there's money?" "There's more than money," I said softly. "But it depends on what kind of person you want to be when you receive it." I let her stay in the guest room that night. She slept like a child, exhausted, defeated. I watched her from the doorway for a moment, remembering the nights I used to sing her to sleep. The small, curious girl who used to say, "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be just like you." Somewhere along the way, the world had taken that little girl and replaced her with someone else. Someone hungry, restless, hollow. But I wasn't going to scold her anymore. I was going to teach her. The next morning, I woke her early. "Get dressed," I said. "We're going for a drive." "To where?" she asked groggily. "You'll see." An hour later, we were standing in front of a modest building on the outskirts of town. The sign read, "Hale Community Shelter." Her frown tightened. "What are we doing here?" Your father and I started this place years ago. We helped single mothers, veterans, people who lost everything. It's been closed since he died. Today, we reopen it." She blinked. "Why? What does this have to do with me?" "Everything," I said. "You want your inheritance? This is where it starts." Her jaw tightened. "You can't be serious. I don't have time for this, Mom." "Oh, but I can," I said gently, "because your father left everything in my name, and he trusted me to decide when you'd earn it." Her face went pale. "You're joking." "I never joke about lessons, Angela." She glared at me, then stormed back to the car. I let her go, because I knew when she realized she had nowhere else to go, she'd come back. And she did. 3 days later, she returned, tired, hungry, defeated. She didn't say a word, just walked inside the shelter and began wiping tables. Day after day, she worked. At first bitterly, then quietly. She served meals, folded clothes, helped children with homework. I watched from a distance, pretending to be just another volunteer. Weeks passed, and something strange began to happen. She started laughing again. Real laughter, not the kind she posted on Instagram. She hugged the old veterans when they thanked her. She listened to women cry about losing everything, and for the first time in years, she didn't look like she was performing. She looked human again. One evening, as we locked up the shelter, she turned to me. "Mom," she said softly, "I think I understand now. It's not about what you have. It's about who you become." I smiled, tears stinging my eyes. "I know, sweetheart." She hesitated. "Do you think Dad would be proud of me?" I placed my hand on her cheek. "He already is." That night, she hugged me tighter than she had in years. But I still hadn't told her the truth. Not all of it. Because Robert hadn't just left me property and money. He'd left me something far more powerful. A choice. And I was about to make it. 6 months passed. 6 long months of silence, sweat, and humility. Angela changed. Truly changed. She didn't know that I often watched her from the office window at the shelter. She never complained, never demanded anything again. She worked beside the broken, the lost, the forgotten, and somewhere along the way, she began to heal. The world had taken her innocence years ago, but now I watched her earn it back, piece by piece. Then one gray morning, I decided it was time. I invited her to the old beach house, the one she had once sold so easily. It was freshly painted, the scent of salt and lemon polish drifting through the rooms. When she arrived, she froze at the doorway. "Mom, you fixed it?" "Yes," I said softly. "Robert built this place for us. It deserves life, not silence." She smiled faintly, brushing her fingers along the walls. "It feels like home again." I nodded toward the porch overlooking the waves. "Come sit. There's something we need to talk about." She sat beside me, her expression nervous. "Is this about Dad's money?" "Yes." Her eyes filled with fear. "If you want me to give it all back, I will. I don't need it anymore, Mom. I just want—" I interrupted with a small smile. "Oh, sweetheart, it's not about taking it back. It's about giving it away, properly." She blinked. "What do you mean?" I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick envelope. Robert's handwriting still elegant and steady. "This," I said, handing it to her, "was meant for you. Your father left it in case you ever found your way again." Angela's hands shook as she opened it. Inside were several documents, property deeds, bank statements, and a letter. Her lips quivered as she read aloud. "My dearest Angela, if you are reading this, it means your mother has forgiven you, and that means you found yourself again. I never wanted to burden you with our wealth while I was alive, because I feared it might take away the very thing I loved most about you, your heart. Money can rebuild houses, but not families. It can fill your wallet, but not your soul. If you've learned that truth, then everything I've worked for is yours. Love, Dad. She covered her mouth, sobbing silently. He knew I'd mess up. I smiled sadly. He didn't know, darling. He just understood life. She turned to me, tears streaming down her cheeks. Mom, I don't deserve this. Maybe not then, I said softly. But now you do. For a long time, we sat in silence, watching the tide roll in and out. The ocean was calm, as if even nature had forgiven her. Then she said something I didn't expect. Mom, what about you? What did Dad leave for you? I smiled faintly, looking out at the horizon. He left me the truth. She frowned. The truth? I turned to face her. Yes, the truth that love isn't about protecting someone from pain. It's about letting them feel it until they understand who they really are. She looked confused, so I continued. Robert left me one more letter, Angela, one that told me exactly what to do if you ever betrayed us. He asked me to teach you, not punish you, to make you see the weight of what love really costs. Her breath hitched. You mean all this? The shelter, the conditions, everything? That was part of his plan? Part of his wish, I corrected gently, but the choice was mine. Her eyes widened. So you could have just given me everything from the start? Yes, I said, but then you'd have learned nothing, and you would have destroyed yourself completely. She stared at me, realization washing over her face. You knew this would break me? I knew it might, I whispered, but I also knew it might save you. Tears spilled down her cheeks again, but this time they weren't desperate. They were cleansing. Mom, she whispered, I'm sorry for everything. I know. And I meant it. That evening, after she fell asleep in the guest room of the beach house, I walked outside and stood under the stars. The ocean breeze was cool and gentle. I felt Robert's presence beside me, not as a ghost, but as a memory so strong it felt alive. You were right, I whispered into the night. She needed to fall before she could stand again. The waves answered with a soft crash. Then I looked down at the folder in my hands, the last part of Robert's plan that I hadn't shared. It was a new will, one I had rewritten after everything that had happened. In it, half of our fortune went to Angela, but not directly. It went into a foundation, one dedicated to the shelter, to struggling families, to second chances. Angela would run it. Her salary, modest, but her impact, immense. The other half, the private properties, the hidden accounts, I quietly signed over to the same foundation, anonymously. When Angela would wake in the morning, she'd think she was rich again. In reality, she'd only be a guardian of that wealth, just like her father wanted. Because the truth is, revenge is sweet, but redemption is eternal. The next morning, as the sun rose over the ocean, Angela joined me on the porch, smiling for the first time in years. Mom, she said softly, what happens now? I looked at her, my daughter, reborn, and replied, now, my love, we start over.